Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to the TCGU Final Fantasy Podcast. I'm Noah, your lovely host, I hope. Woo-woo-woo. Followed here by
Travis,
James,
and our special guest today is...
Sup, homies? I'm Zeth.
Now, Zeth, you wanna tell everybody about yourself real quick?
Yeah, I actually started in Final Fantasy about a year ago, last July. I went out to a small shop out in Chicago, and the dude I met there was super cool. He actually got me started with a couple of the starter decks. We played with some of the random cards he had, and I went to the local qualifier in Omaha, and I've been playing ever since. I've been at this for about a year now. I went to Reunion at the start of this year, and I had a lot of fun. I brought Wind Lightning Vaughn out there, and I called it the Secret Vaughn Handshake. The whole point behind it was to blast Vaughn out and have him get Ilwa or Zidane, and then just go in.
Yeah,
it was pretty good. I like that deck a lot.
Yep, 60 feet Vaughn is a good card.
So that's that for you guys. We're gonna get to our housekeeping items as usual. I always stumble words.
Words are hard.
Words are hard. So let's give a shout out to our lovely Patreon supporters.
Tamron.
He's got this.
Oh, yes.
All right. Let's make sure I don't get these names wrong. James, you're here to back me up as usual.
Yep.
So is it Addy?
Addy.
Awesome. Addy, Andrew Dang, Anthony Albano.
Basic. We just went with basic. We have no real idea of how to say it yet.
Okay. Basic. Bryce Rathsack, Chris Miner, Clay Cardwell, Jay Rogers, Jared Hubbard, Jesse Morrison, Justin Farst, Justin Hobbs, Kat Maria, Kevin Broberg, Kieran Vision. I said that right?
Yep.
Cool. Lucinda Letica.
Hey, you did it.
Omikala. Oh, how do you pronounce that?
Okamila.
I don't know why I keep doing this.
Don't worry, Tim fucked it up too.
Orlando Valdez Santos.
You about to change it back? Okay.
Nice. Paul Casagrande. Peyton Kyler.
Did we get
Ransom MacArthur.
Orlando
Samantha
Valdez
Stevens,
Santos?
the baddest bitch around. Sean O'Brien. Theodore Ruiz. And Tyler Zanpees. Thank you guys for being our awesome Patreon supporters.
We got
also
tree sponsors.
Tree sponsors. We've got Cards Custom Build, Ink Gaming, and Deck Protection. Make sure to check those guys out.
There'll be an ad later.
Yeah, there will be an ad later. Also, if you guys are all interested, you can check us out on YouTube, Patreon, Twitch. What's this last one here? Facebook. That's one. That's a very important one.
iTunes and SoundCloud as well.
iTunes and SoundCloud. That's a new one.
We do podcasts.
It's right there. It's underlined.
I mean, that's fair. I guess the underline part cuts out.
All TCG University. Make sure if you have a site you want us to be on, just let us know. Out there and see what we can do.
We'll be there for you.
I'm not putting guarantees out.
That's fair. That's fair. No guarantee. We'll do our best.
We'll do the best we can.
All right. So on to our main encompassing topic of this podcast. We're talking about board management,
board control,
all that fun stuff. So we're going to kick this off with the first one, which is, hey, Travis, how do you stabilize your board?
How do you stabilize your board? Well, I have an easy answer and a more complicated answer. The easy answer.
We're gonna get the complicated one out of the way first.
We'll do the easy answer first because it's 2 words. Play Famfrit.
That's not board. That's not your board control. That's controlling your opponent's board.
It's doing both.
It's not.
It is. It absolutely is,
it's
James.
Not. You're sacrificing dudes. That's not the same thing.
No, you're not.
But your dudes that you sacrifice can turn into other dudes.
Nobody's actually sacking dudes to play Famfrit.
Exactly.
We're sacking an empty board. Thanks for your own board control of not playing dudes.
Great job. There are also dudes that have effects when they go to the break zone.
Like Porum.
Like
Viking.
Golbez.
Your favorite Viking.
Yeah.
Which is controlling your own board.
Mm-hmm. I still won't agree with this.
So now,
well, you don't have to.
Famfrit does not control your board. It controls your opponent's.
Your more complicated answer.
Pay no mind to this guy. So, my more complicated answer is you control your own board by controlling your opponent's board first. And that's something that James and a lot of people have not realized. If you have control over your opponent's board first, it's really easy to set up a board and keep control of it. Mm-hmm. Because the way this game works is you're either in the driver's seat from turn 1 or you're a passenger trying to get the driver's seat from the person who presumably kidnapped you. So, how you do that...
Kidnapping's illegal, though, so, don't they just lose the game for making an illegal move?
No.
We tried.
Statement. he does realize the only deck I play doesn't offensively try to do anything but ping, right?
Yeah, your deck
like,
actually
and I have to
prefers-
build up to the ping. It's not like, oh, you have 2 dudes on board. I'll take care of those right now.
So the thing,
Pay 3.
the thing with because you're talking about WAF, right?
Yeah.
So the thing about WAF and the thing that really makes it tier 0 right now is the fact that Ryan, when she's able to come off of not only your backups but your forwards also. So like you can start out with your forwards, and then Ryan can just immediately kind of provide that the power behind that punch, and then all of a sudden your 7K land that has first strike already does the damage to a dude. I have to have a 10 or 11K dude in front of it to even think
About
of trying to survive Lon. But the other cool thing with Lon also is that when Lon gives Frit the 5K Brave, that's a 10K for 2 CP that you just kind of bomb into my
9.
units.
Fritz 4 base.
Oh, he's 4 base?
Yeah.
So it's a 9. 13K
still
with
good.
pings.
Frit?
Yeah,
The
so...
small dude?
Yeah,
That grabs an Ifrit?
yeah,
No, he's a 2.
yeah.
No, we're talking about
His
the
power.
damage.
Power.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's a
Yeah.
4.
So yeah, like a 9K
like,
Brave
he's
for 2.
definitely
So,
just a two.
so like WAF has multiple 2
their
2-drop
entire
9Ks.
engine's 2 drops, yeah.
Yeah, because you have Hound, the 2-drop WAF, where if you have other WAF characters, she gets Brave, and then after you get
Gets
like
big.
yeah, and then after 5 she gets
nice.
5K.
She gets like she's like a 10K brave.
Yeah.
Brave 10K.
Like,
But anyways, yet again, WAF is an example of a deck that is very good at starting off not in the driver's seat and taking the driver's seat. So
reverse kidnaps the opponent.
yes,
well,
it gets
here's the thing. Waff jumps in your car and says, "This is mine." mid drive, just hey, I need to borrow all this. Real quick."
you're going at 60 miles per hour and they just jump into your
Break-
car
just
window.
break through the window. Like, I need to borrow this real quick. Gotta get somewhere.
Official
So,
police
all,
business.
like twitchy, like.
So Travis, you said you had a more complex answer when it came to board state.
So that is part of my complex answer is like you can start controlling your own board by controlling your opponent's board, because getting gradual leads in this game and then building those into a snowball that rolls on top of your opponent is a really good way to do this.
Spicy Italian perfection.
So really what it comes down to is knowing how to snowball a lead. And I feel like that's important in any card game, but especially in games like Final Fantasy and Magic the Gathering, where you have to know when you need to deal with something and when you don't. And when you need to deal with something, you have to deal with it in the most efficient way possible so you can still snowball your own lead while you're doing so.
Thank you, Travis. That was very insightful, actually.
No problem.
You're welcome would have been enough, but now you're just creeping on everybody.
No problem.
He showed up more, right?
Right. All right, Zeth. So, you got anything to add on to Travis's point?
So when it comes to actually being able to maintain control of your opponent's board, you yourself only have X amount of resources that despite every card in your hand being able to pay for resources, that's when you're not going to be able to get back unless you're playing certain elements or you're playing certain recursion pieces. So in instances like with a very common misplay I see with people is like they get rid of summon super early, and when your deck has no summon recursion, you're not going to see that card ever again.
Yeah.
You are effectively dumping it off to the side to try to develop tempo to get back into the game. I really like the driver-passenger mentality, where it's like I'm either the one that starts this game and I keep this going forward, but if I try to push this too hard, you then become the driver. And then if I get punished for overextending into it, in Final Fantasy, it is super hard to come back from that punish.
Yeah.
I feel like it's hard to come back in general in Final Fantasy. Like sometimes there's a point where like it's right there. Like you have to keep up at the just behind pace. But if you just slightly mess up and fall just the tiniest even bit more behind, it's just gone.
Misplays are very punishing in Final Fantasy.
Yeah, for sure. I misplayed once against Travis and lost an entire game because I'm a dummy.
To give another driving reference, you tried to shift your gear a little too early.
Yeah, for sure.
And you fucked up.
Hey, I would have had it if I thought it through. I did not.
But yeah, so don't shift gears too early, folks.
Now
That's
just
fair
force it. Just force it.
Well,
What's up, Tam?
how can you tell when you're behind? You keep saying that like you decide if you're in front or behind if you're driving or the passenger. What are the details that as a player I should look for? When do I know I'm driving or I'm the
Yeah.
When do you know when you are the passenger in this explanation?
Or you're the driver.
person who's behind.
I could start us off with that.
Kick it.
So there's actually some really good resources that are on Final Fantasy Crystarium. They actually have articles that talk about damage management. And part of damage management is being able to recognize that when your opponent develops forwards and they're dealing damage to you, because it's always going to be a fixated 1 point of damage, except in certain circumstances.
Like Arc.
With Arc.
Yeah.
Or Chalinka, where you're taking a little bit more damage than you need
Or
to
like
be.
Luso or something like that, yeah.
Yep.
And in instances like that, when I'm able to identify when I'm behind, it isn't just like if I've taken damage, like, you know, because honestly, the only point of damage that really matters is the last one. And in Final Fantasy, it comes down to hand advantage is king, where if you have run out of cards in hand, that is when you are truly behind. If I have to spend 3 cards to try to remove something on your board, or I have to spend 3 cards to try to get a big forward out, that's when you can tell your opponent's behind. Or that's when you yourself can identify when you're behind.
Yeah.
And when it comes to those situations of being able to recognize when someone's behind, that's where they're overpaying, right? Now, overpaying, like, initially isn't as bad, and that's actually one of the strategies that's helped me become better, is recognizing that overpaying, like, the first turn or the second turn to get a couple of backups out actually isn't so bad.
I actually find it to be better almost.
But
Like,
Usually when people overpay,
It depends on the deck.
yeah.
the card
Very
the,
heavily.
the card they play usually nets them some form of value, but yeah.
But I can truly tell when I'm behind, when my opponent has developed forwards and I have not answered anywhere between 1 to 2 of their forwards. Now, this can be with cards like Ifrit removing one of their guys, for me losing a card and then playing Ifrit. But even then, you're using 2 cards to get rid of their 1. And again, with Final Fantasy having the draw 2 mechanism, you're breaking even to get rid of one of their guys.
Yeah.
Now, assuming that their guy doesn't have an ETB, you essentially broke even on them, because if it's on a 3-drop, they spent a card and they've played a card and they've lost that guy to your thing, so you essentially broke even against each other. Then it comes kind of like this back and forth slugfest between cards, and when it ever gets to a point where one of your cards can nail 2 of theirs, that's when it kind of goes to, I'm a little bit ahead now, and now you're a little bit behind.
Yep.
I like that. That's actually a really good summary of it.
Yeah. So to kind of snowball off of that, I think one of the easiest ways to see when you're ahead or behind is you look at your hand, compare it to your opponent's, and you look at your board and compare it to your opponent's. So basically, let's say my opponent has like 2 forwards, 2 backups. I have 3 forwards, 2 backups, but I have 1 more card in hand than they do. So not only am I ahead on board by 1 forward, I'm also ahead in hand by 1 card, which is 1 card is a huge difference when your cards all count for 2 mana basically to cast whatever you want, and that card can get you a nice 2-for-1, which honestly one of the best things you can do in this game, which I don't see people do enough, or I see people like mis-execute, is getting a free 2-for-1 when the opportunity exists. So like specifically referencing a card like 5 CP Titan, which is a 5 CP Earth summon that says choose one of your forwards and one of your opponents. Your forward gets 2k and then deals its power as damage to the opposing forward. So I see a lot of people just shotgun that card when they don't need to during their turn, instead of looking for their opponent to make a mistake and attack and get a nice 2-for-1 with that card, because you have to either spend 5 CP of all your backups, or you have to pitch cards from your hand for that Titan, and it's, unless you hit it on EX burst, obviously,
Right.
but that's an asterisk, just to break even or get your opponent, get value out of your opponent, you have to 2-for-1 them with that
Yes.
card. And I don't think a lot of people realize that, which, like, that's something that you need to see when you, like, look at that card. You need to think, is this optimal? Am I using this card in the optimal sense on my turn? Do I need to use this card? Because if you're behind, Titan can save games if you're behind. So instead of just shotgunning it and using it as an aggressive tool, you can also use it as a control piece.
Yep.
Thank you, Travis. That was very kind of you.
No problem.
James, you got any cool inputs? They summed up everything I could possibly say.
Yeah. I agree with everything.
Every single thing? Even that Travis is cool?
When did that happen? When did that happen?
I will say, though, touching on the Titan point, most people do want a gun for the EX burst. That's why you play it in the deck. But for I myself, when it comes to cards that I want to try to pull me out from a losing position, I'm looking for something cheap.
Yeah.
Right? Because if I'm in a losing position, it's because I don't have enough backups on board yet, or I have a really small hand size.
Yeah.
So cards like Hecaton Chair, Famfrit, the 3-cost Efreet, or even in some cases, the 1-cost Cockatrice, right?
Spicy.
Like being able to have like those really efficient cards that help me keep my forwards on board. Because the thing with the forward is like it's kind of like an invisible timer, right? So let's say in a world where no forwards have any under battlefield abilities, they're just vanillas, right? If I'm playing this forward off of 2 cards, so he's 4. Essentially, for me to get the value back from, he needs to stay out for at least 2 turns.
Yeah.
If he stays out for 2 turns, the invisible timer has gone off. I've gotten my value out of him. You can kill him now.
Yeah.
If he dies any earlier before that, I've effectively lost 4 invisible resource, or CP in this case.
Yep.
You have essentially, with 2 cards, made me lose 3 cards. I'm -1 now, and that puts you up 1. So that whole I'm down here, you go a little bit up here, that's where I'm now in a bit of a losing position. I am now in a bit of a winning position. And so cards like Titan stuff, they're great because, they hit on EX burst. But if I'm able to just spend 1 CP and handle your guy, why would I want to spend 5?
Exactly.
Yeah. It all comes down to efficiency.
Yep.
Name of the game.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, touching on that then, and James mentioned it, it's hard to come back in the game, in James's opinion. Mm-hmm. What do you guys think of actually being able to, like, obviously there's a point of no return, which you've all discussed, but do you think there's a way to, like, build yourself back up from behind?
No, for sure. So it's like really weird because at the end of the day, the best way to come back is just outwitting your opponent. Like that's you have to bait them into things, you have to make them take bad trades, you have to do everything in your power. You have to play to your outs, so to speak, in order to win the game. And if you can't afford to do that, then that's the point of no return. Yes. When you have no outs to play to, there's nothing left for you to do. That's the point of no return. And I think it's really easy for newer players to get trapped in that like spectrum where it's like they can't see the light at the end of the tunnel. They can only see the beginning of the game and the point of no return. Mm-hmm. I feel like that's not just a thing in this card game, but a lot of card games.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep,
absolutely.
It's a thing that traps new players from like either fixing their deck up to make it a bit more functional or just pushing through to that like next skill level. You got anything you want to add on?
Yeah, like the idea that he brought up, like recognizing the point of no return and playing 2 outs. I will run a mental checklist at the start of every turn. Yep. And if I'm able to recognize the person's elements of like, okay, because there's another really great article that I found on Mogpod Gaming where they actually interviewed one of the Japanese players that talks about optimizing your play. And the way that he described it is don't just plan for the turn you're playing right now. Plan for, at the very least, the next turn. What's your opponent going to do for the next turn? And in response to that, what's your turn going to be after this one?
Yeah.
And I usually like to try to at least go 2 turns ahead, where it's like, okay, 2 turns from now, what's my opponent's outs? If you're playing Earth, there's a chance you're playing Shantoto. What does that mean for me? I don't want to develop more than 2 forwards. Maybe 3 if I really want to push it. Now, if my opponent's on, like, 2 damage, there's no reason for me to put more forwards out, because unless they have haste, pushing you from 4 damage to 5 damage isn't going to get me any closer to winning the game. Because once you hit that 5 damage, I now have 3 forwards out. Shantoto's actually pretty good there.
Yeah.
If you do it on 2 forwards, you play kind of that game with your opponent where it's like, do I really just want to go for a regular 2-for-1 with Shantoto? Right? And then they have to decide if that's the only time that they can Shantoto because they don't have recursion for the deck. Then they have to decide, all right, I'm going to Shantoto now, and if they just build a board after this, then I don't have another board wipe after it.
Yeah. That card does stick unless they can get rid of it and
Yep.
they can play another one
Which-
somehow.
Which there's a lot of fun ways to do it. Kane can remove your own Shantoto because it's a lightning backup.
Yep.
fair.
And Kuja, when he's in your break zone, can also get rid of Shantoto because it's an ice backup.
Yep. Because it has all the elements
Mm-hmm.
except for light and dark.
Yep. But
The line dark's worthless.
Yep.
But with the like the end of the tunnel mentality, because the thing that will really trap new players is I can lose 3 cards and play my big boss monster right now. That's crazy.
Yeah.
And then they encounter Diabolos and recognize that it's a card.
Yeah.
And then they wonder why they ever play any big dudes ever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They get fanfruited and they go, well, okay. They play a small dude and get fanfruited.
Which
Okay.
I also
God, I hate Fanfrit. That's just me.
if you guys haven't noticed, I really like to quote a lot of articles. There's a really old article back in Magic the Gathering's archives. It's called "Who's the Beatdown," right? And when it comes to like board management, you have to figure out in your matchup as soon as possible: am I the aggressive player? In this matchup, do I need to be the aggressive player?
No.
If that's the case, I need to go in and I need to haymaker my opponent before they're able to stop
My
me.
answer's probably
Haymaker
yes.
just sounds so... I like that.
I play WoF. My answer's probably yes.
Yeah.
But WoF's a good example. Like if you're facing like an ice earth variant that they want to slow the game down, they want to build to 5 backups. You as WoF, you want to go in and get me to damage 3 or damage 6 as soon as possible.
Yeah.
Because if you get me to damage 5, all it takes is I play 1 Squall, I Dole Freeze one of your WoF guys, I then do 8k to another one of your WoF guys, and then I'll Dole another one of your guys that I can freeze, and then Renoa can flicker that Squall out, and I've killed 2 of your
again.
forwards, knocked out 2 of your forwards for another round, and then after that I play Ultimecia, and I've frozen your forward lineup. I have now secured the game.
Yeah, that squall is actually insane. It's a 3 CP squall that says if your opponent has 2 or less cards in hand on play, you get a dole at any character.
Yep.
Doesn't have to be a forward. If you are at damage 3,
Yep.
it's dole and freeze.
Then damage 5 is
Dam-
where you're able to deal 8k to a
Yep.
Dole dude.
Yep. It's God, the card's just so good. Anyways, something else that I was going to say was a lot of people don't take risks per se, or they take too many risks. Like they don't balance their risk management
Yep.
properly, and it ends up to them losing games because sometimes people will make a suboptimal play looking for an out when your only out is to slam your hand on the table and hope they don't have it, because that happens a lot more than people would like to admit. And it's okay to just 50-50 a game and
Yes.
say if they have it, they have it. If they don't, they don't.
Yeah.
Yep.
WoF bird.
Yeah, if you're playing an aggressive deck and
That was the entire
your opponent
game,
is
yeah.
playing Earth, yeah, you can think about the Shintoto, but there's also the mentality of you don't got it, and if you hit the Shintoto in the damage zone, then you feel even better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that was like our game earlier when I
Yeah.
was like, man, what if he just like draws rain? This might be and just swing and we hit the rain. It was like,
and then he
nice.
swung again and hit the Shantoto. It's just like,
Yeah, we were in that place. We were going hard.
But that ties in really well when it comes to like board management. You actually have to like when it comes to the board, you actually have to think about your opponent's deck, because when you're attacking your opponent, you are removing resources from their deck. So being able to hit the cards like Shantoto, being able to hit cards like Nyx or cards that have really good ETBs but no EX,
Yep.
that's where you're able to really kind of get at your opponent's core game plan. Where if I hit 2 of your Rhines, I've already shut down a chunk of your WoF deck with
Yeah.
you only having 2 Rhines that you cannot recur. There is no way for you to get those cards back. They're gone. And as the game goes on, as that game goes on even further, when we get to like damage, where I'm at like damage 2 or 3, and you're on damage 4 or 5, that's 2 more cards out of your deck when we start decking out.
Yep.
And when you're considering all the searching that you do in FF and the little bit of card draw we do, like you are accelerating yourself to an early grave.
hey, the last podcast was the between 1s and 2s.
Yeah.
Draw 1, draw 2.
And
Yep.
you know that the damage
Check it
thing,
out.
that's not even going into the fact that in FF tournament structures, your tie breaks and stuff are based off of the damage you win at. So if you can take less damage, that's the most optimal standpoint that you can take.
Which there's actually 2 schools of thought that come with that damage management. where there's the either go really aggressive and then throw that haymaker that puts them to damage 5 really early.
Yeah.
And you only go on 1 or 2 damage on the crackback. Or there's the control mentality of it where you slowly handle your opponent's board and you go for like a really sticky forward like Kadaj, or you go for a forward that's evasive like Adele, and you just hit them 7 times.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's fair. I mean, so we've moved on to it just a bit with our second topic, which is when you decide to go on defense or offense.
Yes.
And I think we're doing great on that. I do want to hear what James has to say on that, though.
About defense, offense.
Yeah. Like when do you think's a solid time to be on, to go on the offense or to
Wait,
stay
James?
on defense?
I already know his answer. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Waff go burr.
Waff does go burr.
That doesn't count, Travis.
That was actually gonna be my funny answer. Was well, yeah, but like Waff just goes burr. But if you notice, like half that entire match, we just sat there staring at each other with a full board.
Yeah.
And then I went, I can get 7 dudes on board to your 4. Nice.
So like we joke about it, but like let's actually talk about that in kind of a more of like a semi-serious detail. When you mean like Waff go burr, like what exactly do you mean by that?
The one game where we played over here, where I had 1 dude on board, and I killed him by putting 5 more dudes on board in 1 turn. Because I had like 6 cards in hand and like 5 backups. And I just
like,
went blah 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 blah.
Waff has the potential
Waff
to be
has the potential
a
to drop
hand slam that
5
hastes
dudes
out
on
and pings your
board.
board off.
Yep.
It goes
the
0 to 100 very fast.
Yeah.
Now
Waff's a psycho roller coaster.
the other thing you got to be watchful for when it comes to defense, and I've actually learned this playing Mono Lightning. Ilwa's super dangerous because when you're playing a Mono Lightning player and they only have you on like damage 2, damage 3, okay, all right, I feel pretty safe.
No.
No, you're not safe.
No, here's what happens is that you Glocka into another 3-drop forward, and then you Ilwa, and if you're on damage 3, I now have 5 forwards that have been hasted off of Ilwa's shoal, and all of a sudden I surprise lethal you, and and you let them beat up on you the entire game, and then you just come out with Ilwa, and you go for that liver blow, and it puts him out of the game.
That was gonna be my joke for tiebreakers. Was just like, just kill him, forehead.
Yeah.
You don't need to worry about tiebreakers if they're
They can
dead.
take my life, but
If you're winning everything,
I
who
can have their
cares?
life.
Like, who needs to worry about tiebreakers if you win every game?
Yeah.
Fair enough.
I mean, yeah, that's definitely an issue that you have to worry about. Like, you don't want to overextend, obviously. It's the same with, like, every game.
Because
a lot of card
Shantoto
games are like
exists.
fighting games, yeah. Overextending can end up punishing you in a way where you hit the point of no return faster
And
than
punishing
you
in this game is very
Yeah,
hard.
the hardest punish is where you like overextend into a hasted forward turn 1 and you get hit by Odin,
Yeah.
or you get hit by a Tomos, or you get hit by that Ifrit that burns your character off board. That feels so bad. Like when I was first learning the game, and one of the semi-joke decks I had was a Mono Lightning 50 forwards Gilgamesh deck, which was based on the Strongest Sword Gilgamesh.
Yup.
I would swing it with my 2-drop haste guy, and then I would hit an EX burst Ifrit. I've lost 2 cards to the 1. And damage 1 through 5 doesn't matter a lot if I lose all my forwards.
Yeah.
Yep.
Because then it's like turn 3, turn 4. I have no cards left because you burned all my forwards, and you have 4 backups.
Yup.
Oops.
Yeah.
Or just
You get put in a really tight spot.
You watch a water player just build 3 backups for 3 turns, and you're like, cool, I have 2 dudes, I'll swing. You EX burst my Fanfrit.
I mean,
Nice no board there.
for instance, like games I played with Travis where he was playing Water Ice.
Yep.
It was either you see Zidane and he throws that down, so you have to worry about dealing with that, or just taking the point of damage and eating it, which is fine sometimes. But like the more cards Water has, the worse it is for you sometimes. Or the dude just goes, I'm gonna slap 6 down and hit the Sune. So then you're like, oh, he's got summons that he's just gonna use and flicker everything else. It's how you want to build your board up to keep yourself alive at that point, or if you want to like. Because at those points, defense just seems to be the better option.
Now, the thing that people also that I feel miss out on when it comes to like defending yourself is blocking in Final Fantasy is kind of a trap. Because if you're resorted to blocking, that's showing to your opponent, I do not have the resources in hand to stop you.
Yeah, I don't have anything else I
Or-
can possibly do.
Or if the resources in my hand require combat. So like if they're playing Earth or if they're playing Fire, a lot of your like responses are based in combat. Whereas stuff like Wind, it's very proactive with like Diabolos, Valifor,
Yeah.
like all of those. And so when you're able to recognize when you are going on the defensive and you're considering blocking with your guys, sometimes taking the point of damage protects your board because then you're not trying to trade guys out.
And sometimes
to
taking
actually,
damage is better.
Yeah, like honestly, because EX versus the thing, taking damage isn't as terrible, but
You have a shot of actually countering on the
And
thing.
speaking of that's a concept I would like to discuss is
Yep.
knowing how to tempo damage and how to tempo damage properly is a very important skill in this game because, like Zeph was saying earlier, if you tempo damage properly and you plan ahead and think, this is how much damage I want to take, but behind that, this is how much damage I'm okay with taking.
Yep.
Because there's a very clear line between the damage I want to take and the damage I can take without getting behind in the game.
your comfort level of damage.
Yep. So knowing
I'm fine
that,
with taking 6 damage.
and knowing
Any
that,
more is I'm drawing the line.
knowing that, and knowing when to execute upon that and how to plan ahead multiple turns in advance. Like if my opponent does this next turn, I'll be okay with taking this amount of damage. But if it's any more than this, I have to do something about it.
Yep.
So I really like that concept, and I think it's a really good thing to learn if you're going to try and be competitive in this game.
Oh yeah, for sure. I realized throughout playing like majority of decks, at least for me, 4 is probably where I want to be at. I'd say in any standard deck, 5 is nice. 4 is like where you want to be. 5 is at max where you want to take things because you can get pushed into that 6-7 space real easily if you're not careful.
5 has that one slot of comfort where it's just like, if they give me one haste I'm not ready for, I can take that 1 point damage and deal with the rest.
Now, when it also comes to damage management, you also have to consider your matchup, right?
Yeah.
So, like, I myself, if I'm able to recognize they're playing Hurdy, or if they're playing any Ilwa-focused deck, I'll be perfectly honest with you guys, damage management for that goes really far out the window. Because when I was at Reunion, I was on damage 2, and then my opponent came in with Ice Lightning Ilwa, and I went to 6 damage on turn 3.
Yeah.
Like, I got punched in, and it was so hard. Like, it took me hitting Vaughn to get 2 more forwards out to actually get back into that game. And like Travis said, I took the 50-50 there. I just threw out the Vaughn, and I just hoped that my next 2-3 cost forwards were good enough.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, they were not.
Yeah. You know, there was another similar situation that I went through like a while back where I was playing against Ramon or Momo from LWG. Shoutouts to him.
Yeah.
He was playing Wind Water standard units. I was on Oops All Forwards, and I played a turn 1 Golbez. I stuck an attack, played a Mime, I believe, on that same turn, and then he attacked me, hit a Famfrit, and I broke my Golbez and killed him on turn 3.
Yeah.
So
I think I watched that game.
you did. You
That
were
was
sitting right
really
next
sad
to
to
me.
watch. I was like,
Sounds more like a play mistake to break a Golbez.
No,
You get to
he
choose.
no what
Yeah.
I
no,
choose.
Yeah,
choose.
what
That's the
happened
thing.
is
You
that
choose, he
what
doesn't,
happened
yeah.
was that Momo attacked
That's
him.
awesome.
He EX burst his own Famfrit.
Yeah.
and
For some reason I thought he got to choose off the
yeah,
fan.
but
like-
he can choose not to do the Famfrit though too, can't he?
Well, no, I was the one that hit
Yeah,
the
he-
Famfrit.
Oh,
he attacked
okay,
into
okay,
me,
yeah.
and I
Momo
was
attacked him. Now, and this is coming from just my play experience. You wouldn't know that would happen.
Oh,
Like,
absolutely, yeah.
You would see,
There's not much playing around it, but like,
Your deck's made to break
Yeah.
Golbez.
but
Yeah.
It's break
but
Golbez
I was
top deck.
I was about to say that just comes with game sense though,
Yeah.
right? If
Yeah.
you're able to recognize that your opponent's on Golbez, you have to consider those play options of what break options did they consider for their deck. Because
Yeah.
the most common ones are Hecatoncheir for 2, which
Yup.
lets you fight with your Golbez. Famfrit's a very common one. I've actually seen
Chaos.
lists do Exodus, and they just declare the number 6.
Cloud.
Yeah, where they cloud into delete it and then break
Yeah.
them.
Yep.
Yeah, but that's on your turn. I'm
That's
talking.
fair, yeah.
I'm talking about like instantaneous ways to do it.
Yep.
And being able to consider those outs when it comes to pushing forward, like that's what you really have to be playful of when it comes to actually like going from the defense on offense. Is that when I'm attacking my opponent, what's the thing that I'm going to see off the top of their deck? If, like, for example, if it's Earth, it could be Shantoto. If I hit Shantoto, that's pretty sweet.
yeah,
But on the same coin of that, it could be Yojimbo. And Yojimbo gives their guy 3k and then blows out my guy, and that feels really bad.
Yo, Jimbo.
Hey,
or
Tim, you want to pull up that picture again?
He goes, no.
like the thing that you have to be careful with is also like what element you're attacking into, because if lightning's in it, they might be playing Odin. You don't know.
Yep.
Well, I mean, if they play lightning, then that kind of keys you into Odin, but
Yeah.
that involves your opponent actually getting into it.
And then if you see lightning, then you know they're playing Odin, because obviously.
the two work together.
Yeah, like, you don't get one without the other.
But something that's really helped me decide when it comes to time to push is when you get those cards that promote you pushing. Things like Ilwa, things like Rhine, things like there's a forward that like it comes in and it helps answer one of your opponent's forwards. Or like cards like Kane, Barbaration, the one that makes
cute.
things 1K.
Yeah, she's so nice.
Like, I'm able to switch that that switch over when I get a forward that can at the very least answer another forward, and then you can start kind of pushing that little bit out, and then usually your opponents, they'll think just like you, and they're like, okay, I'll just take the point of damage instead of risking my board. And from there, then it just kind of comes down to that breakdown of, all right, I'm going to start kind of plinking off at forwards, and each of the elements are anywhere between decent to really good at it.
Yep.
Like, for example, Wind and Lightning's really good at targeting one forward, or Fire's really good at doing it too.
Fire does it a lot.
Well, Fire's also the most efficient when it comes to burn
Yep.
damage. But when you're having to deal with cards like Y'shtola, I would rather use Lightning, because Lightning has a lot of straight break 3 or less, and if I pop Y'shtola to it, I mean, we got rid of her anyway.
Yeah.
So it doesn't feel that bad.
I don't see you stole around a lot, even though the card's still really good.
Yeah.
You play it, but
Yeah.
you kind of have to. You have a really weak board.
Yeah.
So-
Somebody could just sneeze and blade beam you.
So, like, the issue that comes with playing Y'shtola is that it comes down to opportunity cost, and it comes down, and I think this is, at least in my opinion, the most important part of board and threat management is understanding your meta. Like, that
That's
in it,
true, yeah.
that in and of itself completely encapsulates your own board management. But it breaks down to, as I'm designing my deck, what am I most likely going to face? Because if I don't build my deck correctly for the meta, that board that's going to face me, I have no response to it then, and then we're not going to see the light at the end of the tunnel because I'm not built for it. So when I put together my Earthfire Marsh-Reeds deck, I actually play a singleton Hecatoncheir. Now, Hecatoncheir is in a weird place right now. It's the 3-drop one that breaks backups.
Yeah.
It's in a weird spot right now where it's either a completely dead card and I have no backup targets for it, or my opponent plays Tarot or Minfilia or another overtly expensive backup, and then I punish it, and then I can tear it back. So if they try to do it again, I can punish it even harder.
Yeah.
So it's either a complete blowout card, or it does absolutely nothing. And for Final Fantasy, like even with like board states, that's the duality of it. It's either you're completely in the front on it, or you're completely in the back, and you're trying to find that way to hook back into the front.
Yeah.
And it all comes down to, for me, understanding your meta and properly designing your deck for your meta. Because how I play at locals is going to be entirely different than how I play it like a
For
regional.
sure. Yeah, because local meta compared to regional meta is always going to vary. Because you get a bunch of people that think that they have the best deck, and then you
They
find
haven't
out
seen
real
my
quick.
deck, yeah.
Yeah.
You're like, ha, they haven't seen my deck yet. It's like playing online.
Yep.
For like those that play online games. Like I remember playing Halo with my friends locally and being like, man, I'm so good at this game, and then I get online and I'm like, man, I'm so bad. Like, what? How do they shoot me? Can you
I've
not
never
snipe?
had to think that. That's weird.
I mean, yeah.
I just know I'm bad.
Yeah.
It's not how am I this bad. It's just like, oh, I'm just not good at like MOBAs.
I mean, I mean, just don't suck.
Halo's
5 head.
not a MOBA.
Yeah, Travis,
I'm bad
Noah,
at I'm bad at
do any of you
MOBAs.
guys have any thoughts?
So, I think, I mean, you summed it up. I think it does all come down to card knowledge in some sense. I say it a lot. I know
Yeah.
I do. But, like, it's very
Learn
important
your
to have-
cards.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's very important to learn your cards, read your cards, know what they do. Know what your deck does through and through before you decide to take your deck anywhere major, so you don't get your spirits crushed on things. And then, as you play through your deck, figure out all the things that you need to fix. If your deck doesn't win 90% of the time, change cards around.
So another point I want to touch on is, so for new players, when they discover like meta decks, the first thing they'll do is they'll get the deck like, oh, I want to make these changes to it. Do not make any changes to the meta deck until you've piloted it time upon time upon time itself.
It is a meta deck for a reason.
Yes, because it's for the same reason that you don't mess with like your first stew or any other food that you make, right? Is that you make it to see if you really like it, and then if you do like it, try and add something to it to see if you can make it any better. Because if you try to make it better right away, you haven't understood the nuances of the deck, and then you're gonna get punished because there are certain aspects that you're missing because you've taken out aspects.
Yeah, playtesting is very important.
Yep.
It's always going to be important
Grind
with
the
card
games out.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure.
So
even if you don't feel like, even if you feel like your deck's ready, like always play a game.
The only caveat to that, with like, I'll snowball off of your expression a little with the cooking stuff, is unless you're an experienced chef, that is the only time where it's okay to take a deck, not play it, and immediately make changes because you're confident in not only your skill as a player, but your skill as a deck builder to change that deck. So I think that's like one of the caveats to that. But like outside of that, I think having matchup knowledge, even outside of card knowledge, is very, very important. And that's another reason why, yet again, testing is so important. I can't stress this enough. If you're a new player and you are trying to pilot a deck, you need to figure out your matchups. You need to play against your local players. You need to check out lists online. You need to play against people online. Do whatever you can to figure out your matchups and what people are playing.
The other thing that's really helped me out also with trying to get behind, well, when you're actually behind, is piling the other person's deck afterward
Yeah.
and seeing how you would solve it.
What's up, Tam?
I want to make a comment on something that I think you said.
Me? Probably.
Yeah, fuck you.
If you don't have a 90% success rate with your deck, change it.
So, like, I guess I worded that weird. If your deck doesn't do as well as you think it does, or as well as you want it to do, always look to improve your deck and optimize it the best way possible. Take a card out, switch it with something else that might do something similar but a bit better, or something that helps stabilize the deck in some other form or fashion that gives it a more overall reach for what you need. Because, like, for instance, when I play Dragon Ball, I use this. If my deck doesn't consistently do what I need it to do when I need it to, or roughly around the same time, or when I play games and I should win, but I don't, if it's, either due to me misplaying or such and such, I feel like changing a card out and trying it differently with that card would also just help.
Here's where I was getting to the question. 90 was hyperbole. Do you agree?
Yeah, for sure.
What's the real number? What's the real number that you feel if both players were playing at the absolute best? What's the number that you actually should be winning a percentage of the time? Obviously, it's matchup dependent, and you're gonna have to repeat what I'm saying because I'm not on mic. But what's that number?
So
look
if
like
it's
for the top
hyperbole being the 90%,
Yeah.
you said 90% of the time.
What's
if
the
deck
number
doesn't
you
win,
shoot for?
What's the number you should shoot for? Like if a deck's not performing the way it wants.
So,
Name it out of 10. Trav, go.
no. So
any number at all.
I think the best way to describe it is, I think it's a 90%, but not based on your win percentage, based on how consistently your deck should perform. And not even, performing doesn't mean winning. Performing means your deck's doing what it wants to do, whether you lose or not.
You are
And
making the optimal plays for your deck.
Exactly.
And
I think that should, if that can't happen 90% of the time, then you should go back to the drawing board on a few things and see if you can make your deck better or improve as a player.
And the thing that really helps me with that is goldfishing. Playing the deck by myself,
Fishbowl.
draw those 5 cards, and look at it and go, okay, what are the cards that I look for in this deck? I'm going to use Mono Lightning as an example. When you're playing second in Mono Lightning, you want to be able to find Sid Previa because he lets you grab your 3-drop backup, which guarantees that you have 2 backups online for you to play your 2-drop backup on curve, and then you're able to comfortably play the game from there. Yeah. Whereas if I'm going first as Mono Lightning, I want to find Ilwa. The reason being is that by turn 2, I want to throw Ilwa down, and I want to start pressuring you. And then while I'm pressuring you with Ilwa, I can then comfortably build back row. So being able to feed off of that point that, yes, there's matchups, but you want to look for like that 90% efficiency with your own plays.
Yeah.
Am I discarding the appropriate card to play my backup? Am I discarding the appropriate cards to play my forwards? Is this a forward that I play off of my backups? Because you would be surprised how many people will just throw away cards to play a forward when this is a forward that you can easily play off backups and you'd be able to get a good effect off of it.
Yep.
But the inverse is also true that I've learned with Mono Lightning is that my 4-drop backups, I don't have to spend all my 4-drop forwards, I should say. I shouldn't have to spend all of my backups just to play that forward.
Yeah. You want to space it out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because we have cards that are both even and odd numbers, like you really want to space things out on how you pay and everything like that too.
Yep.
You don't just want to throw all your backups down to cast the Titan if you can tap 3 and pitch a card.
And to put it into like a theoretical situation for our viewers out there.
Yep.
If you build a deck, let's say you're playing
Waff.
Wind Lightning.
Waff
So it doesn't matter, just a two color combination in your deck.
Mm-hmm.
And you say, in my opening 5, my opening 6, I want my hand to contain at least 2 wind cards. If your deck can't do that 90% of the time, you need to go back to the drawing board on your numbers.
Yep.
There's actually another really good article on Mogpod Gaming that actually talks about deck design nuance and stuff like that. The example they used was Sid 2. He's the 4-drop backup that lets you find a 1-cost backup when you duel him. Yep. So
I know that card.
The way they talked about it is they're like, okay, we're going to build a standard Sid 2 deck where it's 50 cards, and we're going to include 3 copies of Sid 2. Now, when it comes to the formula that they use, there's actually like a mathematic formula that you can use, and there's there's a link to the calculator and everything, right?
Yep.
And the math that's done for is that you want to be able to, including a mulligan, to find that Sid 2. You have an 18% of finding 1 copy.
Yeah.
And from there, like that in and of itself doesn't seem like a really big number. But when you add
It's huge.
yeah, but the thing is that when you add in Thornton 7, which is the guy that he's a 5-drop backup that lets you grab any card, and it's an EX burst.
Yep.
By adding those two, that jumps your numbers up to roughly 30%. You have a 1 in 3 chance after a mulligan to find either Sid 2 or to find your Thornton, to find your Sid 2.
Yep.
You essentially have 5 shots out of your deck to find the Sid.
Yep.
And when you're including a mulligan on that, you get about a 15-20% chance of opening with Sid 2, because the more times you can activate Sid, the more value you're getting out of those 1-drop backups.
Yep.
Even
And
if you just pitch them, like
Yep.
by the time
Yeah,
you build up your
they're
backup
2.
row,
Yeah.
it's literally free CP.
Yeah. Mhm.
The
Yep.
odds of getting it after the mulligan is just so huge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The number is like something below 40, but like
Yep.
it's so huge. That's such a big number for drawing 1 fucking card.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, but that's the consistency part of it, right? And that's what we're talking about when it comes to hitting those numbers.
You start talking numbers and ooh.
James is like, ooh, numbers.
If it's one thing I'll show up for, it's crunching numbers.
Yep, like
and
redundancy,
theoretical statistics.
redundancy when it comes to designing your decks is that there's a reason you play 3 ofs of a particular card, and that's actually a hurdle I personally had to get over when I was playing Final Fantasy. It's like, why do I want to play 3 copies of a card if it's unique? It's because I want to find it.
Yeah.
And the argument then comes up of, well, I can just discard it for CP, but then you're talking about deck space then,
Yep.
right? Which for me, when I always talk with new players, is that deck space is at a premium. So if I'm playing 3 copies of a card, either I want it to be able to special so I can get something off of it, or I want to be able to have it die so I can play my second copy, or I want to guarantee that I have this copy.
Yeah. For sure.
Yep.
Thanks, Sam. Enjoyed that.
Yeah,
So-
that's good.
Third topic, which I'm pretty sure we've talked about majority of the time now too.
Let's go to an ad break first.
Oh yeah, that's
though.
right. We got our ad break.
What are you doing?
Cards Custom Builds. Are you into cosplay? Looking to get into cosplay? Do you want to show up to events dressed as your favorite character? Well, then Cards Custom Build can help. Cards Custom Build creates everything from cosplay accessories like props, trinkets, or weaponry, all the way up to full-blown costumes. Do you want to make a perfectly flowing cloth, or maybe want rigid battle armor? Cards Custom Build has you covered. The work is guaranteed to make you the talk of the con. So go over to Cards Custom Build on either Facebook or on their Etsy account. Links will be in the description down below. And make sure you mention TCG University to get 5% off your entire order. order. We're also sponsored by InkedGaming.com. Are you looking to get a custom playmat? Well, then we suggest you check out InkedGaming.com. They have custom playmats, dice bags, mouse pads, and so much more. They even recently added a stitch option to their playmat and mouse pads as well. Stop those frayed edges from happening. Inked Gaming lets you play your game with your style, and if you want to get 10% off of your entire order, use the code TCG University, all caps, no spaces at checkout, and help support us by customizing your game to your style. And lastly, the show's brought to you by Dex Protection. Dex Protection is on a never-ending pursuit to create the highest quality storage and protection accessories. Their design and innovation comes from die-hard gamers and collectors just like you. They're constantly taking in feedback from their customers, and they have no plans to stop their innovations or their drive to refine the products until they're recognized as a leader in their industry. They make terrific products, all with the avid gamer and collector in mind. So go ahead and check them out. The link will be in the description down below.
Hope you guys like that ad. You guys enjoy it?
Pretty sick ad.
What about you, Travis? I'm done with you.
He's like, I sleep.
Zeth, how'd you enjoy the ad?
I thought it was pretty radical.
See, thank you. I'm glad you agree. Travis, get out of here.
I like our sponsors.
Day
Go check them out.
Day one, he's already online with the joke. Come on.
Yeah, come on,
What are you doing, Travis?
God. All right, so last
Not
final
woke
topic
enough
we've
for
touched
me.
on is fragility of a deck. I guess we just want to straighten that down. So what do you... Man, I mean, we kind of have just hit this, but what do you think is necessary in your deck
Okay.
to
What was
keep
that
it from
noise?
being snapped apart just super
Okay.
easily?
Oh, okay. I was
Is my
like, what
chair
the fuck,
shaking?
James?
So when we're talking about overall fragility of a board, the big thing that a lot of people use as like a measuring stick for forwards now is, do I have an ETB trigger? Or as a
It
delayed,
sounds like rain. That's why I'm like...
as like a delayed thing for that is, do I have like a leave the battlefield trigger? So like playing a Porum, I don't feel bad about it,
Yeah.
right? Because if Porum dies, I grab a summon. Not that big a deal. Now, if I don't have any summons in my break zone, okay, it's Augur. But at the end of the day, it's a 2 CP forward. If you're wasting your rule to kill it, I don't really care.
Yeah.
Or
He
like,
says that like he's grabbing any other summon that's not family.
I actually grabbed Phoenix. Phoenix is
Oh,
because
yeah,
like
that's right,
Phoenix
yeah.
forum is
Good.
really
No, do-
good.
I'm
because,
just making a dumb
like
joke.
yeah, doing Porum Phoenix loops is super good. But back
I've
on
never seen
point.
anybody use Porum and not grab it.
Another example is Argath. He's a 2 CP ice forward that when he enters, your opponent discards a
Your
card.
opponent discards a card.
Effectively, I have made my opponent lose 2 CP and I've spent 2 CP. I have completely broken even. If Argath dies,
I want
Yeah.
four.
nice
I
job,
need
bro.
four.
You did your job.
I need two
Now,
more of that card from
you
my
get
deck.
even greater when you start to kind of like consider when it comes to like board building, when you play cards that let you re-grab the cards like Argath, right? Like when I was building my water ice deck, I play Gilgamesh in it. When Gilgamesh attacks you, I grab Argath and you discard a card. So Gilgamesh now reads, when I attack, you discard a card. And then on your turn, if I have Argath leave the field during your attack phase, you have to discard another card. I have effectively Sephiroth'd you for 2 CP.
Yeah,
That's insane. That's effectively insane.
off of one card.
Yeah.
Busted.
Yeah. But like when it comes to like developing like my board or like when I develop my deck, I do consider things like Ilwa's bubble, as we described, like her counter target thing that targets me, right?
Yep.
Or like, do I have an ETB? So like if I die, does something like help me stay ahead? Or worst case scenario, if I'm a forward that needs a turn to like set up, is my setup worth it? So like Waff's instance, like if I'm able to stick on the board long enough, will Ryan help catapult me ahead?
Yep.
So that's something that we have to consider. And I've seen so many decks built where it's like, well, this is my linchpin card, and if I lose it, then it sucks nuts. A really good example of this is Lock. So like the 6 shell in and of itself, Lock is an incredible linchpin. Most 6 builds make or break off of Lock. If he's able to hit you for that extra discard of a card, that's where 6 completely takes over the game.
Yeah.
Now, if you lose just a card off of him, like you're okay with it, but you really want to be able to get that second part of his effect off. And that's where like the fragility of 6 starts coming in, where if they freedom off the board, it sucks.
Yep.
Yep. Also, hot take: Genesis is better than Locke right now. Don't at me.
I mean, Genesis says what on
Dual freeze on entry.
Dole
And
freeze
then
on
he
entry,
swing
and
discard.
and then
Yeah.
when they touch him, they discard. Or when they get touched by him, they discard.
Why you gotta say it that way?
Because
Kid friendly.
and the reason why I say that is
Mm-hmm.
not only because Locke dies so hard to Zalira, first of all, and
Yeah, it's
Genesis does not.
The magic number 4.
Yeah,
It's that thing
Genesis has the
ice
magic number
something
4 on his side,
Mm-hmm.
which
Odd color dudes.
not only it already puts
the
him
weird
like even
skeleton
footing with
looking dude
lock.
that's the
Yep.
grab
But then when
things.
you consider just how good
It's like
doling
1,
and freezing something is,
Yep.
it's a lot better. So like, I think if you're playing 6, obviously you're playing lock.
Yes.
But if
100%.
if you're playing other things, or if you're playing a deck that has like enough splashes to play lock, like you have enough 6 characters to play lock, consider playing Genesis, because you'll be a lot more resilient to a lot of removal that is good in the meta.
The Fire Ice build that I did for 6, I played both Genesis and Lock, just so
Yeah.
that way I had multiple options of being able to get
That's
those
another
hits in.
good thing. Yep.
Hot
They
take
have to deal with one or the
hot take
other.
number 2. Board fragility is equal to hand fragility.
Explain.
If you can control if your opponent has like no good like recursion or ag cards,
Yes.
and you have good discard on board, like Scale Toad to me is the perfect like make or break for a lot of decks, because like -1 hand size every turn repeatedly
Gets
Yeah.
rough.
sucks.
Yep.
dick.
Especially when you have to start playing things, because then your
Yeah.
hand just
Yeah,
vanishes.
Because then
And
your hand continues to
So
go.
so there's this really sick deck that I ran into in Reunion that it was it's an Earth Ice build, right? And the main game plan behind it is that you hold your opponent off with Time Mage, which thing can't attack. Then Arcanist for 2, you just you name a number. Any forwards of that number can't attack, so you hold your opponent off of those tax effects, and then you build up and you play Scale Toad. Well, guess what? Now that your opponent's feeling Scale Toad, they have to play forwards. You know what forwards die to? Shantoto.
Yep.
And then guess what? My Kuja that I've discarded for me to play my ice cards, Shantoto goes away. I have a second Shantoto already in hand. Go ahead and rebuild your board again. I'll just make it go away.
Is Une only forwards?
It's forwards only.
Yep.
Okay.
Une is only forward.
Is there
And
any forwards that blink backups?
No, there's
Damn.
not currently a forward that blinks back.
so there's no blinking backups, but we have Tidus and Celeste that snap them back to hand.
Yep.
Yeah.
There's
Which
also
I'm down for
Neone.
this, because like we could Une on our play, blink whatever that is, bounce the Shantoto back, and still fall freeze them.
Yeah.
If we're able to do it.
But like the whole core concept of the deck, like the way it was described by the guy, is it's board wipes the deck. Like he played Fina's, he played Genesis Avatars,
Yeah,
which
you
were
just limit-
basically
you let-
Fina's.
You let your opponent just do everything they can to try and
because they're
push
trying
through.
because they're trying to fight your Scale Toad.
Yeah,
And then
you
guess
force
what?
them to overextend.
You then Genesis Avatar, and then you Magic Pot the Genesis Avatar. That's a board wipe.
Magic pot. Ooh.
Like
Magic Pot is a very slept on card.
Such a good card.
Like,
Yeah. Magic Pot with Onion Knights, solid.
well, the thing that the main
I'll
reason
look
that
into it.
the main reason that people sleep on Magic Pot is because it comes in dull, so you have to wait like a whole turn. But the thing that really
Yeah, just get
isn't
it
like,
early.
well, but here's the thing: is people are still trying to catch on a meta of monster removal.
Yeah,
Right?
Monster
Like,
removal is still not a super easy thing.
You
to do.
would be surprised how many people forget about the remove monster options on their cards. Like I've seen people use remove to dole a guy and then kill another guy and completely forget that it breaks monsters.
Yep.
And you've used your remove too early. I can now sneak out my Magic Pot and then I Veritas Magic Pot Veritas. So you lose a character and a forward and then another forward.
Yep.
Yeah. There's also a really cool thing that you can do with the new realm, I believe, the 5 CP one,
That's
where
something I
you
wanna talk
you
about.
Magic Pot, break the realm, find 5, or you can break the 2 CP one, I believe, and break that, and then find the 5 CP one, which grabs you not only another Magic Pot but another monster, and then you just keep doing that until you're out of 5 CP realms, and now you have a bunch of monsters, your board gets bigger, and meanwhile, you're not having to spend any resources from your hand to do this whatsoever. You can just tap 2 backups and break your Magic Pot.
And the other cool thing for that deck also is that if you go the Chaos Realm route, which there's actually a Japanese deck, the whole concept behind it is Realm, is that you have all these 5-cost forwards like the Dark Lord, Define Chaos, and Realm, and Go. And the whole point of the deck is you get rid of your 5-cost guys early to build your backups and to play out Chaos. And then your Chaos grabs Realm, or it grabs Dark Lord, or it grabs you all your 5-drops that you've binned. And you have so much developing power. The issue of the deck is that it's super slow.
Yeah.
And that actually leads me into our fragility discussion that we were having, is that not only is it fragile for, like, because everyone's able to see when it's a fragile aggro deck, right? The glass cannon mentality, right?
Yep.
Where I go all in and I get punished by an EX burst or I get punished by Shantoto, I completely fall apart. the aspect I feel that not a lot of people look at is how control decks break easy, where it's like they realize that they can't handle Ilwa, they can't handle Braska's Final Aeon because all my stuff targets.
Yep.
And you don't have those outs. So that's why I usually favor my decks like Phoenix, Shoal. I've been playing Cyclops now because I shy away from single target removal because Braska's Final Aeon exists.
Yeah. Getting around that card's not super easy to do.
No.
I shy away from single target removal just because of fan crit. Oh, you target my dude? Yeah, I will blow them both up. Who cares?
Yep.
Yeah. Fanfrit's just unfair.
Yeah,
This is
Fanfrit's-
I hate Fanfrit podcast.
I hate Fanfrit.
So, anyways, guys, I think
And
this
Viking.
is a good place to end off here. I think we covered our points very well, and I
for
think
sure.
I think that hopefully the not only our newer players but some of our older veteran players got a little bit out of this.
Yeah.
Anything.
I want to thank Zeph for showing up, dude. It's great
Yep.
to have you.
Thanks, homie. I appreciate it.
It was
Man's over
fantastic.
here dumping the truth information on us. I like it.
Yeah.
James, you got any cool final thoughts?
I'm glad Travis came out of hiding. I don't know what he's been doing for like the last 3 months,
Playing Destiny, probably.
but
Destiny.
it hasn't been
You're
doing
fired.
anything, in my opinion. Who cares?
You got any final thoughts, my man?
No, I just really appreciate you guys letting me come out and just kind of actually share like my hyperbolic time chamber knowledge that I've used during this time to actually be able to help people out.
Yeah.
It's always good.
Spread the word.
Get the game going.
Yeah.
So thanks for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed. Make sure to check us out on all of the platforms mentioned earlier. I'll re-say them just in case. We got YouTube, Twitch, Patreon, and Facebook. If you iTunes and SoundCloud. James has to remind me on that one.
We do
I got it.
podcasts.
And Spotify,
Spotify.
because we do podcasts.
Spotify.
So during your day, night, morning, whatever. Thanks for watching, guys.
Deuces.
Bye.